Hello and welcome. If you're new to my channel, my name is Christina, and in this week's video, I'm really excited to share 5 easy DIY projects with you. It's all about recreate, restyle, and recycle. Lots to cover, so let's head over to project 1. I wanted to share how I'm going to upcycle this IKEA bar stool chair just by using some decoupage. Now it has a backrest plate as well as the seating, but with this particular chair, it's actually got a curve to it built in for the seat. So I want to show you a few tricks that I did just to get a nice smooth surface with your decoupage. First thing I'll do is cut out exactly what I need for the seat, and just with some simple cling wrap and Mod Podge, I can go ahead and start my decoupage. Very important when using the Mod Podge for your decoupage is to make sure that the Mod Podge is evenly distributed across your surface. If the Mod Podge is too thick or thin in certain areas, this will disrupt the balance in which the decoupage will actually stick and adhere properly. So just using that cling wrap, I'm going to go around and smooth out my surface. But sometimes when you're working with a curved area, or an area that has a little bit of a concavity to it, what I recommend is actually making little relief cuts, which means from the side of your decoupage, you're actually just going to make little slits. And this way, when you run your saran wrap across your decoupage, this will cause the decoupage not to split, rip, or bubble over. Now what I would like to do is actually make sure that the decoupage is going to go around the edge of the seat. So I'm going to cut it as I need. This way I have a nice smooth transition, and when I'm finished with that, then I can use a little bit of sandpaper at the bottom edge and actually make it nice and straight and cohesive. With the backrest, I want to make sure that I have enough decoupage paper and make sure that the actual pattern will coincide from the front to the back. So again, this backrest actually has that curve to it, so I'm going to use the saran wrap to make sure that it's nicely placed. The reason I like to use the saran wrap is it takes out any of the creases and or of the bubble marks that happen when you're adding the Mod Podge. And again, I want to make sure that the sides are nice and straight. And again, dealing with that curve, just make small little cuts on all 4 sides of your decoupage. This way, when you run it through an area that has a little bit of a dip to it, this way you have a little bit of that relief, so that way the decoupage itself won't actually tear. Again, if your seat or backrest is completely straight, this doesn't apply, but because this actually has that bit of a curve, it does. So I'm just taking a fine grit sandpaper, I think this is a 120, and I'm just going at a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to go around and make everything nice and smooth, and I'm going to do the exact same thing to the back side. But I want to make sure that the back side is parallel to the front side based on the decoupage pattern. To completely seal your decoupage projects, you could just use the Mod Podge, or you could use a polyurethane. I find that the Mod Podge does a great job. It seals it and protects it.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are...
I have some old picture frames that I think I thrifted a long time ago, and I thought it would be great to upcycle them by creating these, quote, faux oil paintings using a decoupage. So I'm going to be using a somewhat of a thin kind of Bristol board backing, and I'm going to place my decoupage image onto this Bristol board. Then Once I've got it on there, I'm just going to use the exact same method. Using that cling wrap, just give it a nice smooth over just to iron out those creases and any little air bubbles. Once the decoupage is completely onto the Bristol, then what I will do is seal the entire project with the Mod Podge. But what I did notice is there was a slight warping because there's moisture being applied to the paper. Once it was dry, I just placed it overnight underneath 2 heavy books, and that flattened out my decoupage image. Now I want to upcycle these old picture frames. The inside of the frame actually has a little bit of a material border around it, but the wood frame, I'm going to use the chalk paint in French linen. I always find it really helpful when working with a really thick paint like chalk paint, and because I'm covering a dark color with a light color, is to do thin layers. This way my paint doesn't get gloppy and clumpy, and I can get a nice surface coverage with 2 thin coats. But what I really would like to do with the upcycle of these frames is to create an additional texture. So I'm just going to use a chalk paint wash in the old white. I'm going to use a moist towel. It's just a shop towel. And I'm going to add on a 50% paint, 50% water paint wash. Then I'm going to use that moist rag towel, and I'm just going to do the ragging technique. And this is going to give it a faux texture. If you've never done a chalk paint wash, this is a fabulous project to start with. It's small, it's simple, and it's a great way to upcycle old picture frames. This way you can pick any color, match, and palette that you want to go with your home decor. It is really important to make sure your base coat is 100% dry first, so leaving it out for a couple of hours, then do your chalk paint wash. Once your chalk paint wash is completely dry, for the inside border, I'm just going to go around with the dark charcoal chalk paint in graphite. Then I'm going to seal everything with the clear wax. For the decoupage image, once everything was dry and I pressed it with the books, I'm going to go ahead and place it inside the picture frame. The great way about doing this is you can cut your Bristol and your decoupage image to the exact cut you need for your frames. The decoupage images will be in the description box below. My husband and I have a collection of these kind of storage boxes, and they're actually quite handy. But what we've been doing is separating them and actually upcycling them into additional pieces of furniture. So we recently just did a set for friends, and now I'm going to make a set for myself. So we're going to go and attach the 6-inch hairpin legs to both boxes, and then we can get into our next step. Because we're going to be using the end tables for our own bedroom, I wanted to go with a color palette in the old ochre chalk paint. But I thought what might be really fun is to add this style decoupage. And again, any of the decoupage papers that I use in this video will be in the description box below. One thing I adore about chalk paint is it can go on any surface. This being a laminate surface, I'm going to be applying 2 coats, And I want a nice textured look, so I'm just going to use thin coats, and I'm going to use random brush strokes, meaning I'm just going to sway the brush in all different directions. Because I'm painting a very dark surface with a light color, I'm definitely going to need 2 full coats. And again, lots of random brush strokes. But it's really important with sharp edges and corners to go around and rub your brush very gently, so this way your paint doesn't clump up. Really important that the surface you're going to paint with furniture is it's cleaned really well, and I always make sure that each coat I apply is 100% dry before I apply the second. So right now I have 1 coat. I'll let dry 100% and come back the next day to do my second coat. For the decoupage, I wanted to cut it so it sits slightly inside the side of the end table. So again, just use the Mod Podge, evenly distributed. Grab a small piece of cling wrap, so this way you can rub on the decoupage and remove any of the creases and or air bubbles. You may have to go around your surface a few times with your cling wrap until they're all removed, so it's just a little bit of patience. What's really nice is once I'm completed my decoupages, I will go around and seal not only the decoupage but the chalk paint, all with the Mod Podge. I find using the disposable foam brushes the easiest to work with when I work with the Mod Podge. I find because I want it nice and even and evenly distributed, it does the job perfectly. The Mod Podge itself will go on almost a milky but dries clear. I cut out exactly what I needed for the insert of the drawer front. Then I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife very, very carefully once the Mod Podge was dry. Then I went around and removed any of the excess paper. Again, what I did is Mod Podge to seal the decoupage first. Then once I was done with all of my paint, I went back and sealed it again. Just to give the illusion that it's not a decoupage paper stuck onto the end tables, I'm going to use a stippling motion, just stabbing with my paintbrush and the chalk paint that I chose for the actual base, and I'm just going to go around to all the edges and corners and lightly stipple the paint, and this is going to make it more cohesive from the decoupage to the actual surface, and it's going to give the illusion that it has more of a painted on look rather than a decoupage paper stuck to the side. And very, very lightly I went across the entire decoupage with the actual paint as well. I have had this chair for I don't know how long, and because we're in the middle of packing because we're moving, I wasn't sure if I wanted to discard it or keep it, so I thought, you know what, I can upcycle this. So using the decoupage, what I wanted to do, because this is a clear plastic, I wanted to give a transparency with my decoupage. All I would like to do is add in a little bit of art detail with the decoupage, mainly for the backrest and maybe even a little bit for the front. But what I want to do is mirror this decoupage, which means I have 2 sheets of the same decoupage paper. So one was going to go on the front and one is going to go in the back. And this will make sense in just a few moments. Apply your decoupage very, very smooth and evenly. Then go ahead, add your paper. Use that cling wrap so this way you don't tear the decoupage when you're using the Mod Podge. Once everything is done, I'm going to remove any excess with that little bit of sandpaper, and I will seal the decoupage with the Mod Podge. Then I'll go ahead and start to paint the chair. If you are using the sandpaper, really important that you make sure that your angle is at a 45 degree. This way you only tear at the edge. All I want to do is add the decoupage to the center point of the backrest. And I have the same decoupage image, and I'm going to do the exact same to the other side. So they mirror each other, but you're going to be able to see through the chair. So it's actually going to give this really cool light reflection because this is a clear plastic chair. When I am adding a decoupage to a larger surfaced area, I do find it helpful to do small sections, apply the Mod Podge, smooth it down with the Saran wrap, then keep going down my decoupage paper. This way I have good coverage and my decoupage paper doesn't get overly creased. Just going around the rim of the backrest, all around its curves, with that 45 degree angle with that light sandpaper to make a nice cut. Now I'm at the back of the chair, going to be adding the exact same decoupage to mirror the front. And again, once you've completed your decoupages, really important to seal them and let dry with that Mod Podge. Now, going back to the chalk paint, I knew would be a really good coverage paint for this plastic chair. So I'm going to be using that graphite, which is a really dark gray, kind of a charcoal black. And I know it's going to look hideous when I first put my first coat on. It's just going to be a lot of brush strokes. It's going to look awful. So I have a feeling, because this is a clear chair, I'm probably going to need at least 2, if not 3 coats all the way around the frame of this chair. Again, really important that your surface area is clean, and when you do your layers of your chalk paint, make sure they're dry in between those layers. I sealed the entire project again with that Mod Podge once I was done. A while back I found one of these old cedar chests, and this one's got a little bit of damage to it, so I thought, let's go ahead and give this a transformation. As much as I want to save the outside veneer, it looks like I'm probably just going to sand the top and see what I can do with the bottom. Give a really good cleaning with some soap and water or TSP cleaner, and let's see what else we can do with this. With the hand sander, the Orbital, I used a 120 and 220 grit, as there was quite a bit of water damage and I was really hoping to salvage the top of this chest. Now that I've cleaned out the entire chest, I'm going to go and use just plain clear wax for the top. This is a fantastic way to recondition wood. Just use a lint-free cloth and a little bit of the clear wax and just rub it right into the wood like you would a moisturizer. You might want to rub it in pretty good, and I find by working in sections, this way I don't miss anything and I get a nice even distribute amount of the furniture wax. I thought it might be nice to do a mixture for the bottom half of the chest. I'm going to keep the original hardware and just clean them really well with soap and water. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of the veneer and damage to the veneer, but there's no large gouges. So I'm going to use French linen and en fleur, which is like a chocolate brown and a taupe color, for the bottom and blend them all on the outside of this chest. The entire interior was no damage. It was just like as if it was just made yesterday. But the outside, let's see if we can do something a little bit different. The nice part about working with chalk paint on even veneer or raw woods is it's a water-based paint. It doesn't go deep into the wood. So if you ever wanted to go back and actually make a whole project of sanding the entire piece, no problem. It's actually less work than actually putting on a stain. But it's a great way to give it a makeover, just to do something a little bit different or add a little bit of color, texture, and or just some neutrals even for around your home with your already furniture wood pieces. All around the bottom and the drawer of this piece, I'm using the Enfleur and the French linen chalk paint, and I'm just kind of blending it, kind of making the Enfleur at the bottom and the French linen goes all the way to the top. And blending is just practice. It's just having fun with your paint and practice. You definitely want to start with a very thin layer and just going around all your edges and corners. This way your paint doesn't clump up. So I'm just going to put down that base coat of those two colors all around this piece before I get into my next step. I always start with a moist paintbrush, and if I need, I have a water bottle on hand just to kind of mist out the paint a little bit. This will help move your chalk paint around, plus you'll use a lot less paint. So it's really easy to decoupage on top of chalk paint. It's no problem at all. But with this particular decoupage paper, I'm going to have to cut it to fit the length from the hope chest lid all the way to the bottom. That way I can get the wording in. So sometimes it's helpful just to measure out so that way everything is uniformed and you'll have good symmetry with your decoupage based on where you want to place it. Now I have a little metal keyhole that's on the front panel of this hope chest. So I am actually going to poke a little hole exactly where I need it measured on my decoupage paper, and then when I apply it with my Mod Podge and place my decoupage on there, I'm just going to slide it. That way it doesn't tear, but it had just enough opening. That way I can continue to Mod Podge as well as seal that decoupage to the piece. Again, I'm just using that little bit of the saran wrap, that way I can smooth out the decoupage all the way down. And when I get to the lip and the curve of the chest and the drawer, again, just by cutting your decoupage and any frames or curves, just keep rubbing your decoupage with that saran wrap and you shouldn't have any issues. Once the decoupage paper is formed exactly where I want it and I finished rubbing all of the creases and the air bubbles out, I will go back with that Mod Podge and seal it to continue on for my second layer of my chalk paint. What I would like to do is take some of the colors that are currently in this decoupage and the colors that I've chosen for the bottom half of this chest and kind of coincide them together a little bit. I had to take out a little bit of the wording of the original decoupage in order for the actual piece to fit in properly. So sometimes you just have to do a little soldering of your decoupage by cutting out a little bit here, a little bit there. This is creating the symmetry so that way the decoupage and the piece that you're working on work together. Similar to the end tables that I did, I'm actually going back with that chocolate brown chalk paint and the French linen, but this time I'm just going to feather it. As I'm blending, I'm just going to feather it in a little bit into the decoupage, and I'm going to go right across the decoupage, but I'm going to make sure that my bristles to the actual stroke will be nice and light. I don't want to cover the decoupage, I just would like a little bit of the color coding to come into the decoupage that I've painted on the chest. This way the image has more of a painted in look. The number one rule I've always had when it comes to blending or going with a smoother finish and chalk paint, less paint is best. You only need a little tiny bit of paint on your brush. You'll have plenty of time to work with it. If you need a little bit more, just add a little tiny bit of water and this will help push the paint and you'll have a lot of fun playing with it. Very, very lightly, I'm just going to feather that paint into the decoupage corners, and I'm going to lightly run it across the decoupage. Again, making the paint colors be a little bit more cohesive. Now I did notice that there was a bit of a cream white on the decoupage paper, so I'm actually going to use that old ochre that I used on those end tables from my previous project, and I'm actually going to be using that to run it across the French linen, so away from the decoupage. And I'm going to go around and hit all those high points and those little curves and rails in the actual piece. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a lip, there's a little bit of deco on the sides. I'm just going to go around and just lightly hit the French linen with that old ochre cream color. This is very, very similar to almost like a dry brush. You didn't need hardly any paint. You almost want it so the paint is so little on your bristles, but it's just going to add in a little bit of highlights through the rest of the piece. If you need to make any corrections, just grab that French linen and go around and actually reverse. Thank you so much for watching this week's video, and please, if you have any questions or comments, please leave me a comment in the comment box below. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share this video. We are so excited as we are just about to move, and we're going to give you a full guided tour of our new home on Vancouver Island, 130-year-old historic home. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and notification bell. That's going to tell you when I upload my next video. And until then, take care, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon.